Rangers Podcast.
With Andrew Chelney. And Nick Zararis.
Rangers fans, welcome to the best Rangers podcast in town. I am Andrew Chelney alongside Nick Zararis, and we are Liberty Blue. We scream about the Rangers so that you can save your voice. That's how deeply we care about you, and we appreciate that you've joined us for the ride. This is episode 30, live on Twitter, on Twitch, and on YouTube. We'll put the full video up on our YouTube at Liberty Blue Podcast, and the audio version will be available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Give the show that shiny and illustrious 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. It helps the show more than you think it does. Just search Liberty Blue search Liberty Blue on your favorite podcast platform, and it should be there. At Liberty Blue Pod on Twitter and Instagram, I am at Chelney Andrew, CHELNEY Andrew, alongside Nick Zararis, Nick ZARARIS. Those are our personal Twitter handles to follow as well. Nick, last week we said the Rangers needed to get 5 or 6 points, and well, they did.
But very unsatisfying. They kind of Carolina objectively has been a better team in the regular season over the last 2 years than the Rangers. But for whatever the reason, the Rangers typically play Carolina pretty well. So I felt okay going into that game. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about that. But the most pressing game of last week was the Devils game, because it was a microcosm of all of the team's problems and limitations within a single game, a single 3-period game where they got out in front. They stopped forechecking aggressively. They stopped getting the puck below the goal line. They couldn't find anything offensively, especially as the Devils started getting back into that game. When that game got to overtime, you knew the Rangers were probably screwed. You knew the Rangers were probably screwed, because that's a Devils team that was more or less down and out at 3-1, and they found a way to claw their way back into it. And when you give teams second, third chances to win games in the NHL, they're going to take advantage of that. The Devils haven't been great the last couple of weeks, but they're still a talented hockey team. They haven't played amazing, but they're talented enough to keep winning games, especially against bad teams. And they found a way against the Rangers on Saturday. There's a lot to unpack in that game. Just frustrating on so many fronts. I mean, we can talk about the lineup deployment, where after a certain point, they move Kravtsov down, they move Gaudreau up, they move Kakko down, they skip a couple Kakko shifts there, they skip a couple Hedl shifts there. There's so much to unpack from that game on Saturday. It's frustrating that the coach keeps making the same mistakes in these same type of games, where they get out in front early, and then as the game goes along, they stop playing aggressively, and the game just gets away from them really quick.
We'll get to the Devils game in a minute here, but the one biggest thing about that whole experience is the Devils were 0-7-1 in their last 8 home games prior to that game. They couldn't win at home for a month prior to that game against the Rangers, and they got to 3-1. And then, well, I forget. I think the Gaudreau absolute ridiculous giveaway was the Devils' first goal. Where if that was Lafreniere, and I know we'll get to the Devils game, but if that was Lafreniere that literally gift wrapped the puck to Jack Hughes, who then scored the first goal for the Devils, Lafreniere would not see the ice for 3 months. Like, that is the most asinine part about this whole situation, is that Gerard Gallant preaches accountability, and he preaches, if you make mistakes, and we'll show you to make mistakes. And then Gaudreau literally gives the best player on the ice the puck, who then scores, and then he's back out on the ice the very next shift. What are we doing here? That's what I want to know, because this man, Gerard Gallant, and Vince Marcogliano asked about why he played, and then, and Gallant, I have the quote up now. It's like, it's about Gaudreau being a hell of a player. I'm going to move him up all the time. And it's just like, dude, and he says, he made a mistake the other night. Big deal. People make mistakes. But that's, like, what are we doing here? Does he not hear himself speak? Lafreniere literally is in a rut because he's afraid to make any kind of mistake, because then he'll just get benched again. But Gaudreau does it, and it's all okay. All right, sure, why not?
Okay, so this is where we have to think like a man in his 60s who has been in hockey his entire life, who has been in hockey since if I had to do the math and like guess, maybe like Kennedy was president when Gerard Gallant started
Jesus.
playing hockey for perspective. So
Yeah.
like Gerard Gallant's entire life has been centered around hockey. He has gotten to this point in his life because of all of his previous life experiences. They all got him to this point. So when you spend your entire life in the sport and you get to a certain point based on your life experiences, the connections you've made, your natural inclination is going to assume my instincts are right because they've gotten me this far before. That is why he is going to be inclined to do things like this because, well, I feel safe when Gaudreau's on the ice because he's done this, he's done that, he's accomplished this. It's not a results thing. It's a comfort thing. It's a feeling thing. And like I had a real discussion with somebody about this in my DMs over the weekend who was trying to argue, well, the organization Gallant, no, Barclay Goodrow's not a top six forward. Well, no, they don't.
No,
Gallant,
that's not true.
whenever Gallant has the opportunity to, he plays Gaudreau up there. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago when we were talking the Christmas episode. We were talking about Gaudreau was brought here to fulfill a specific role. And they're not using him to do that specific role. And it's been a challenge to get him back into once they took that out. Once they let that genie out of the bottle, I was trying to think of the expression of, oh, Gaudreau can play anywhere in the lineup.
Now Christina Aguilera in the chat, just all
Yes.
coming out of nowhere.
Sidebar, you want to hear something heinous?
Oh boy.
You know the Bowling for Soup song, 1985?
It's a classic banger.
That song, if it were written today, would be about 2002.
Jesus.
Because you said Christina Aguilera. You
didn't have to say that. You know, of all the things that you say, that's keep that one. You didn't have to say it out loud. That's an asinine. That's an asinine fact. You didn't keep that one in the drafts next time. Damn.
Okay, so the last thing on Gaudreau before we move on and talk a little bit more about the Devils game at large, just he's a comfort guy. Gallant trusts him unconditionally. It's the same reason Trouba only got that one period 2 weeks ago where he played on the third pair and they moved Schneider up for a period or two. It's a comfort thing. He's never going to get out of that habit. And complaining about it feels great for us, but like we were talking about before we started recording, the Rangers have these things. They have guys like Gaudreau, like Trouba. They prioritize getting guys like Reeves, like Sammy Blais, because they need to appeal to the part of the fan base that is not on the internet. There are studies about this in every walk of life, in politics, in sports, in pop culture. The people who are constantly posting, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, wherever you're posting, those are the most engaged, most informed people. Those are the people who are consuming a ton of content to be able to form their own opinion about it. The vast majority of Ranger fans think, well, Gallant trusts Barclay Goudreau. I should trust Barclay Goudreau because the coach of my favorite team does, and my favorite team isn't going to do wrong by me. That's the way a lot of people interact with their favorite teams because it is just a casual hobby. They are not deranged like Andrew and I talking on this podcast. They cannot name all 109 people who have scored a goal for the Rangers since the 2012 lockout. The average Ranger fan,
Sammy Blais, by the way, not one of those people. Still,
I hope he gets on there so I can edit it. I hope he gets on there between now and the end of the season so I can add him onto that score. Just so it's one less thing to complain about.
Yeah.
I'm tired of talking about it. I wish he would just score a goal. But
I mean, again, that's always the point of these things. It's we don't complain about it because we like complaining about these things. I would much rather Sammy Blais have a 30-goal season and the Rangers go 82-0. That'd be great. We wouldn't have to scream, wouldn't have to yell, wouldn't have to argue about nuances and who's getting this many minutes of ice time. And if they're all winning, everything is going well, nothing to complain about. But Sammy Blais continues to get ice time for his cardio workout, I guess. So
this is also something I wanted to brush up. A lot of the Rangers' concerns seem like they're on the margins. It's guys like Blais. It's guys like Gaudreau. The real issue is they cannot score consistently enough in any situation.
No.
The power play needs a real, genuine reconfiguration. Like, genuinely, it's time to break up the power play and it's time to juggle it to get it going. And then if you want to revisit these five players down the road and feel like they just needed a little time away from each other to improve, it's time to stop giving the first power play carte blanche, 90-second runs at it. It's time to genuinely reassess it because it's been very average. And if the Rangers aren't good enough at 5-on-5 for the offense to be the power play to be average, the Rangers need that power play to be top 8, top 7 to make up for the shortcomings at 5-on-5. And that's not to say, because I was looking at it earlier because Corey Schneider put out his first batch of the micro stats, like the transition stuff, like dump ins, recoveries, successful zone exits, and that stuff. The Rangers grade out really well in all of the micro stats. The underlying numbers are a lot better than they were last year. They're still not putting the puck in the net, no, which is the ultimate issue here. We've been talking about this all year. If you're going to be this kind of team that's going to rely on your goaltending, you got to be able to score more than the other team. You can't win games 2-2. You can't win games 0-0. You need to score at least one more than the other team if you're going to win the hockey game. And right now, the offense just doesn't come consistently enough.
The problem, again, is on the power play. If you take a look at how the Rangers on the first power play unit, anyway, the second power play unit gets maybe 8 seconds per game, so they're kind of throwaway seconds there. You take a look at the way the first power play unit plays, everybody cheats over to Zibanejad, and nobody looks at Panarin because they know he's not going to shoot the puck. That's the entire power play unit. They will pass it on the perimeter, they will try to get Zibanejad open, end of sentence. Like, that is pretty much all they do. Sometimes there's a shot from the point. Sometimes, I mean, Adam Fox does his ridiculous passes and one will go through and that will lead to a goal. And it looks great when it works. The problem is that it's not working consistently enough because teams have scouted the power play. They know, okay, the Rangers only put out one of the 2 power play units. So we can forget about how the second power play unit operates because they get the final 20 seconds of the 2-minute power play, and that doesn't really matter because the power play is almost over anyway. We are going to focus on the first power play unit. What do? They try to set up Zibanejad. Panarin tries to set up his entire team. Maybe occasionally he'll shoot the puck, but he's a pass-first guy, and that's what he likes to do. That's it. That is the Rangers power play system in a nutshell. So when teams have figured you out, and you're not scoring goals, well, gee, I wonder why you're not scoring goals in the power play anymore. It's no way. I can't believe we figured it out. By gosh, dolly darn it, we've cracked the code. But when teams have figured you out, and you're not changing the process, of course you're not going to score power play goals. You have to either change the personnel, change the thought process of which you attack on the first power play unit, or give equal time to both power play units, because the Rangers, I think, absolutely dominate the league in terms of how much time the first power play unit gets as opposed to their second. The Rangers far and away lead the entire NHL in the discrepancy of time on ice on the power play. So if that, like, these things need to be addressed here. I mean, it's January. There's a lot of time left to fix them. Might as well start now.
The other part of this, and we talked about this a little bit last week, and I do think it's worth repeating here. It is really hard to change learned behavior. The Rangers got into this habit of playing on the power play like this 2 years ago in the 56-game season, and even in the season before that, in the 2019-2020 season. They got into the habit of that first power play unit getting significantly more time in the 2 minutes than the second unit. And then once that first power play unit really kind of popped off, especially that second half of the 2019-2020 season, when Panarin was flirting with 100 points, where they were really good, where they had the ability to they could score not at will, but pretty close to it. And then last year, you kind of got to the nebulous point, the high point of the Rangers power play, at least as long as I've been watching hockey. That was the best Rangers power play I can recall. There were large stretches of my childhood and my teenage years where I would just wish the Rangers would decline the penalty as opposed to going on 5-on-4, because there was no hope of scoring. There was no hope. They would be in the high teens, like 17% of the time they would score on the power play, which is well below league average. Right now, the Rangers are a league average power play. If they want to get back to where they were last year, even close to the top 10, they need to change their alignment. And they need to, the only reason I say to change who's on what power play is because that will force Panarin to start shooting more if he's playing with different people. Zibanejad will be inclined to pass more. They can maybe entice Fox to shoot more. Or if Trocheck's on the second power play and they have actual ice time, he can have an opportunity to shoot more. Because a lot of Trocheck's power play offense has been secondary stuff where it's off of rebounds, deflections, the ugly stuff around the net mouth, because he doesn't have a great position to shoot from where they set him up in between the two circles. He's more of a ploy to stand there to bait people to come towards him, which is supposed to open up other people. But other teams don't respect that because, as you were saying, they know where the two shots are coming from. It's coming from Fox or it's coming from Zibanejad. Panarin rarely shoots. Trocheck rarely shoots. It's a real challenge to score on the power play when only two of the guys out there actually shoot frequently.
the Rangers need to change something, because what
Yes.
they're doing right now, teams have figured out, and they're stopping it. And the Rangers, I don't know, maybe like obviously the video guys, the video department can see what's going on. It would be very surprising to me if all the video coordinators that work for the Rangers are watching these games happen, watching all these power plays and thinking, "Oh yeah, this is fine. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with the power play." No, I would imagine that they have meetings about this and hopefully have conversations about how to go about fixing it. But they need to change something, whether it be maybe put Panarin on the second power play unit. Maybe if you space out the talent that you have amongst the power play units, then teams can't cheat. Then you have a dangerous component to each part of your power play, and you can space out the time on ice between the units. You can do what you can. There's a lot of things you can do when your top power play unit that gets 95% of the ice time is struggling to score goals. Space out the talent. That is one way the Rangers can kind of at least try. It's January. Give it a 3-game run. What is stopping Gerard Gallant from just trying that? Because he shifts the lines every 4 minutes in 5-on-5. Why not shift the power play line? Especially if they're struggling the way they are, you might as well do that too.
Okay, it's time. I've been trying to workshop how I want to explain this problem since Saturday afternoon. Since the Gaudreau turnover, since... I don't know if this is an exact perfectly comparison, but where I'm at with Lafreniere and with Gallant is the chicken and the egg conundrum. People can say, well, Lafreniere needs to play better to earn more ice time. That's entirely true. Lafreniere has not been great. He's been slightly above average in terms of comparing him to the rest of forwards who play hockey in the NHL. Slightly above average. Not what you expect from a first overall pick. His defense has not been great. He's been fine offensively. His defense has not been great. That's been true all season. Definitely, I understand why Gallant wants him to be more of a 200-foot player. That's entirely fair. That's a reasonable criticism. Then you can't have these kinds of situations where there's no real path to earning back trust and any kind of credibility, because Kakko's been playing fine the last 2-3 weeks, and he got shift skipped on Saturday. Kravtsov was playing fine with Trocheck and Panarin on Saturday. He got shift skipped, and Gaudreau bumped into his spot. So that's the real issue here. It's two things simultaneously. Gallant needs to trust Lafreniere more, and Lafreniere needs to play better. Both of those can be true at the exact same time. Do I think Gallant deserves a little more of the blame because of how much Lafreniere has been yo-yoed this year? Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. I think the coaching staff definitely deserves a little bit of shit for not giving Lafreniere a chance, because we've talked about this ad nauseum. The Rangers will go as far as these young, cost-controlled guys can take them, because they have no cap space to add any more impact players. You are expecting Kakko, Lafreniere, Chytil, Kravtsov, Lindgren, K'Andre Miller to be impact players because they are cheaper than what you would get from those guys on as unrestricted free agents. That is where you win your Stanley Cups, is excess value against the cap. The Rangers have a lot of guys who are not playing up to their cap hit, which does become an issue ultimately. But for the purposes of this exercise and talking about Lafreniere and Gallant, it's a chicken and the egg kind of thing here. Both are true at the same time, and no one is entirely right and no one is entirely wrong. It's just frustrating because we're no closer to a resolution on this.
It's a similar situation to a certain extent to what's going on in Montreal, where Juraj Slafkovsky really should have been sent to the World Juniors, but he wasn't, and he is struggling super badly right now.
Yeah.
I saw something about, his last 11 games, no points, and he's been playing has a pretty brutal stretch. But in Montreal, the team is terrible. So you kind of just have to give Slafkovsky top minutes. I don't know if they are giving him top 6 minutes, which if not in Montreal, that's a whole another discussion for a whole different time. But like when you're in a situation like that where the team is bad, you're not going anywhere, you might as well play the kids as much as you can. Let them figure it out. Let them go do whatever you want. And when you're the New York Rangers and you're a team that is playoff bound and you have all these expectations and all that, you can't give young players the leash to go out there and make mistakes, for better or for worse. I would love for Gerard Gallant to relax at least a little bit when it comes to Lafreniere. This is a player that for 3 seasons now has been absolutely terrified of making a single mistake. Because whenever he's made those mistakes, which young players do all the time, they have to do all the time, because how are you going to learn to be a better player if you don't figure out what you are doing wrong? You have to understand, hey, I did this, and but this led to a goal against, this led to a turnover. If I change one thing and I do it a little bit differently this time, and that leads to a goal for, okay, I've learned how to fix my mistake and how not to repeat it again. With Lafreniere, whenever he makes that first mistake, he gets taken out of the game pretty much. So how is he supposed to get in the rhythm of fixing his mistakes when he's not really given the opportunity of doing that? Gerard Gallant pulls him, sits him, doesn't play him a lot of time, and when he does, he gets paired with Gaudreau or whoever else can't score that given night. And then people complain about it. It's like, what do you want Lafreniere to do?
It's a self-defeating cycle.
Right,
That's the
exactly.
problem here. It's a self-sustaining cycle that, unless one of the two sides blinks, will go on in perpetuity. Unless the coaching staff wants to give him more leash to make more mistakes, or Lafreniere's confidence improves and his play improves, we are going to be at this point again and again and again. And it's really challenging because he's capable of playing well. You saw him play really well in the playoffs last year. You saw him find a way to be impactful even in that limited role. And that's one of the talking points you get in return. Well, he doesn't need that much ice time. You saw him be good in the playoffs last year. Well, yeah, he was playing with confidence in the playoffs last year. Right now, he doesn't have that confidence to play up to his ability. That's usually what it comes down to. When someone is underperforming their talent, especially someone young, if you want to talk about guys who are older, that's age-related decline. That's different. When a guy is 21 years old, somebody who's been a consensus first overall pick from the time he was 15 years old. Remember that. I knew the name Alexis Lafreniere when he was 15 years old. He was the consensus next guy. This is somebody who had the junior output of somebody like Nathan McKinnon. That is the caliber of prospect we are talking about. He might not be as dynamic in terms of traits, in terms of his skating, his explosiveness. This is an elite playmaker. This is somebody who recorded a 100-point season in junior with 70-something assists. This is somebody who is capable of playing hockey at the highest possible level. And the Rangers have emphasized the parts of his game that he is not that good at. They have said you need to get better at playing 200-foot hockey because you're only going to be playing, 12, 13 minutes a night. You might get maybe 2 to 3 minutes of power play time over the course of an entire game. But you're going to have a very specific role on this team. And it's really hard to shoehorn somebody into that type of smaller role when that's something they've never done before. And you throw in the fact he came into a season that was weird because he had his last season of junior shortened because of the pandemic. He didn't have a full training camp. That first season, he probably would have been better off playing in junior if there was a junior hockey season that year. That's the type of thing that, in hindsight, yeah, they probably should have slow played him a little bit because that 56-game season, they probably weren't a playoff team. But again, this has been a long-term organizational issue. This will be something I want to talk about in another episode when I have time to research. But cursory search. The Rangers drafted, and I'm not counting guys who played NCAA or in a major men's league over in Europe past the age of 18. Those guys don't count. The Rangers don't get credit for developing those guys. The guys we can count: Derek Stepan, Ryan Callahan, Artem Anisimov, Brandon Dubinsky, JT Miller. I got 5 players the Rangers drafted period between the years 2012 and 2023, not including Hito Kakko, Lafreniere, Krasov, etc. Not including those guys during the period where the Rangers were really good. But between 2012, the lockout shortened season, and 2017, the last playoff appearance under Vigneault, 5 guys they drafted that were impactful players that didn't play elsewhere. That's the thing here. This is an organization that does not churn out NHL talent because they have not been able to find roles for them. You remember, it took JT Miller going somewhere else to become the player he is now. Yes, he's a dickhead. He's also very good at hockey.
And the Rangers don't have interest in trading for him. I will say this on the rooftops.
No.
I will say this on Twitter every day if I need to. I said it at the deadline last season, and I will scream it.
You can't say that. You can't say that because that, from what I've read, there was an offer on the table that was pretty freaking good, and the Canucks just didn't take it. So,
To my understanding, the Rangers didn't really want him. Like that. That is my understanding then, and that is my understanding now to this day.
from what I read in 32 Thoughts 2-3 weeks ago, the offer I read was Hedel, Nils Lundqvist, and a draft pick for JT Miller, which is a legitimate offer. That's not saying you don't want the guy. That's not saying you don't want the guy.
I kind of, I don't know. I trust where I got that information from, and my understanding is that the Rangers weren't very interested in him. But either way, the situation remains the same. Of the Rangers don't know how to develop talent. It was like that before.
Well, you got to be
It's
specific.
like that now.
They don't know how to develop forward talent because the defense guys, they just let them figure it out. The defensemen, they just get opportunity.
Unless you're Zach Jones.
Well, Zach Jones, and I'll be fair. Zach Jones was not great in his 20-ish game audition for that, that third pair. So, like, I get it. I get why Gallant feels the need to lean on the veterans and this is something that fans, it's very frustrating when a coach acts in their own self-interest as opposed to what's in the interest of the team. And again, this is something I was having that same conversation with about when I was talking about, the organization does look at Gaudreau as a possible top 6 guy. Yeah, the Rangers don't give these guys opportunities because the coach is trying to save his own neck so that if it doesn't work out here, he can get another job and say, I did what I could. They wouldn't listen to me. They kept asking me, you got to play the young guys. You got to play the young guys. And I told them that's not going to help us win, like what David Quinn is doing in San Jose right now. It is about, for some of these guys, it is more about that self-preservation and being able to defend it in the next round of interviews than winning. And
which is weird. You would think it's weird because if you're in your first year as a head coach and in a particular organization, what are you preserving? You literally just got hired. Unless, I mean, NFL aside, because there's a lot of NFL coaches this season that got fired after one season. But in the NHL, people don't usually get fired after one season as head coach. So if you're David Quinn in San Jose, and I know he does this for reasons, but
self-interest.
But at a certain point, like if you want to be there long term, isn't it to your benefit to have the kids, especially in a season where the San Jose Sharks are not very good. I know that's breaking ceilings and breaking barriers, and I said that, but the San Jose Sharks are not a very good hockey team. So wouldn't you think that if you're the head coach of a team, that hey, while the team is bad, let's have all of the young guys play as much as they can, get as much experience as they can, so that years 2, 3, 4 down the road, when my job is actually under the microscope, that these kids are actually going to play well. Shouldn't that be the thought process that coaches have, especially coaches that are new hires? David Quinn's a new hire in San Jose. He shouldn't be going after wins with a team that is trash.
This is one of those things that's very hard for normal people to understand. These are people who are, you have to have quite the ego to be a professional in any capacity in professional sports. That is what got David Quinn to this point, is believing that he is always right and his decisions are what's going to keep carrying him through. And that's why you have people who make these very short-sighted decisions who look very bad in hindsight because they're operating under the assumption that they are always right. They don't. That's the sign of a bad leader. Somebody who doesn't solicit input from other people, somebody who only trusts their instincts. It's good to have good instincts. That's part of being a good coach. But you need to have some type of rapport with people on your team and your staff to the point where they feel comfortable enough to be like, hey, this isn't working, this isn't right, whatever. Where you get guys like David Quinn who are very clearly rudderless and just whatever happens around them. It's frustrating. It's frustrating for sure. And for us people here on the outside looking in, we can say, yeah, this is dumb. But to somebody like David Quinn, this is what I would do because I've gotten this far in my life doing it like this.
Not to mention that David Quinn got hired in San Jose because him and Mike Rieder went to the same college. Like that was an open thing that they talked about. It was like, oh yeah, like we're a fellow alum and he deserves a second shot. It's just like, dude, how about you just hire the best person? Who cares where they went? He did a poor job in New York, and he's not doing that great of a job in San Jose either. I understand, again, they're not going to be a good team. They weren't expected to be a good team. That roster just doesn't have anything on it besides Erik Karlsson, and Tomas Hertl. But you got like he's not like I don't think he's coaching them the right way, and because he's there because they have him and the GM went to the same school. Like that is hiring for anything except for the best person available. That
All right.
it's tough.
I'm putting a pin. No more kvetching. It is time for predictions for the second half of the season.
Sure.
I will let you go first, Andrew. Hit me with them.
So I have we both have 5. Do you want to go back and forth, or do you just want me to
we'll
read?
Go back and forth. Sure.
All right. So my number 1 prediction is that the Rangers do not trade for Patrick Kane, nor do they trade for nor do they trade for JT Miller. I do not think that either are on their radar right now. I think the Patrick Kane rumors are just kind of fodder right now. I don't think that the Christopher is looking at Patrick. I love that we've started just calling him Christopher. I think that's really funny. But like I don't think that Chris Drury is looking at Patrick Kane right now because, and we've highlighted this throughout the year, and I'm sure the video guys have brought this to his attention as well. Like my guy's doing a terrible job 5-on-5, something that the Rangers need help in, and he isn't really scoring the power play either, which the Rangers, like, I guess right now could need some help in, but he's not really scoring there anyway, and he's just a name, and all the rumors are just like, well, he played with Panarin a few years ago, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, well, dude, you're old now. You're old and you can't play. Like, I don't care. Even if you retain half his salary, he's not worth it. I think they stay away from both.
Okay. That was also one of mine, but my first prediction is very straightforward. Sammy Blais will score 1 goal before the end of the season. Prediction number 1. Sammy Blais will get 1 goal before the end of this season.
That'd be great. We could stop making jokes about him. That'd be great.
And I can add him to the quiz.
That's right. The quiz is very important. And if you haven't done the quiz, go to the Twitter at Liberty Blue Pod. And my Nick made an incredible quiz. It was like 100 names or something. That everybody 109. Everybody that has scored for the Rangers since 2012. I got Aaron Asham, but I forgot Kevin Shattenkirk because that's the world we live in. My second one is the Rangers will reacquire Tyler Mott. There is way too much smoke behind this for this not to happen. They wanted him last summer, but they were like, no, we're gonna keep Ryan Reeves instead. And then they let Tyler Mott go to Ottawa, only to then trade Ryan Reeves, and now they are begging to get Tyler Mott back in the Rangers jersey. So I do think that it'll probably cost another mid-round pick, maybe a 4th, to get him back. I do think they're very interested in him again, and he'll probably be back as a Ranger.
I would love to see it. That's the type of move I would like for the team. 2 of those kinds of role player guys and a Ben Harpur replacement. That would be my ideal deadline. 2 of those interchangeable bottom 6 guys like Mott and a Harpur replacement. That would be great. Next, this one's a little bit out there, but I think Brennan Othman's going to get a cup of coffee in the playoffs.
Oh, okay.
I think they're going to be in a situation where the team he's on, his OHL team, their season ends the second to last week of March, and they would have to get to at least the 3rd round of the OHL playoffs to still be playing when the Rangers playoff season the playoffs would start for the Rangers. I think Brennan Othman will get invited to the playoff roster, and I think he will get into at least 1 playoff game for the Rangers this year.
That's an interesting. My 5th one is spicy, but I'm going to save that one to last. My 3rd one, speaking of Ben Harpur, the Rangers think Ben Harpur is the answer at 60.
I can see that
because he hasn't played poorly, and because they haven't taken him out of the lineup yet. I kind of feel like the Rangers think that he's fine right there. They might acquire another depth defenseman because if Ben Harpur goes down, the Rangers don't really have anybody else. Period. Unless you bring up Zach Jones again or Lieber Hayek, if you want to do any of those. But I kind of feel like they're not confident in either because they haven't played. It's been the Ben Harpur show. So I have the sense now that because Ben Harpur has been okay in his role, that the Rangers kind of feel like he's fine there and they won't go after somebody better. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. I would love to be wrong about that. But as of right now, I kind of get the sense that the Rangers are okay with him being in the lineup every night.
Next prediction. This is something we just talked about. I do think the Rangers will juggle their power plays at some point in the second half of the season. They have to. They need more goals, and they need to fix that. They need to fix the power play to do it.
So my 4th one might get the ire of some fans, but given how the roster is currently constructed, given how Lafreniere has no confidence, given how Gallant continues to play Goudreau top 6 minutes and all these things, even though he gave Jack Hughes an absolute gift after of a goal against New Jersey and then continued to play him anyway, despite him preaching accountability, et cetera, et cetera. They do not get past the second round because right now, the way that this team is currently constructed, we're a team that cannot score 5-on-5 and also their power play stinks. At least last season, their power play was a lot better. They still could score at 5-on-5, but their power play kind of carried them in some points at the playoffs. This season, same problem 5-on-5, but they also can't score on the power play. So unless you fix that with some ridiculous trades or, multiple moves to get that ball rolling, which I don't know if Chris Drury will do, as it is currently constructed right now with all these lineup decisions and all the kind of question marks surrounding this team, I don't see them making it past the second round. I would love to be wrong. Again, listen, I would love to be wrong. I would love them to win the cup this season. That'd be great. That'd be great for our brand. I'd like that. We would not complain for a while. It'd be glorious times on the Liberty Blue Pod. But as of right now, I don't see them making another long run because of the problems that this team currently has.
My last one, I think the Rangers are going to finish second in the Metropolitan Division. I think Carolina will finish ahead of them, but I think the Rangers will eventually pass the Devils. I don't think the Islanders will pass them. I don't think the Penguins will pass them, and I don't think Washington will pass them either.
My last one's spicy. And again, some Rangers fans might not like this, and hopefully I'm wrong about this one too, but this is just how kind of just the vibes. The vibes are off. And my fifth one is that the Rangers will trade Filipino for a winger. And I really, really wish I wish I'm wrong about that. The problem is that if the Rangers really wanted to have Filipino long term, they would have made him the second line center this season. Because now he's coming off he's going to be a restricted free agent after this season. He's probably going to ask for a good amount of money in return. Where are you going to find the money to give it to him? That's one of the biggest questions that I have about this team moving forward is, okay, we have a bunch of these young kids that need new deals and you don't have so much money to give away. So who gets all of it and who gets squeezed out? And unfortunately, I feel like if the Rangers were confident in Filipino, they would have made him the second line center. They would have given somebody like Dylan Strome the third line center spot, and they would have filled out the roster that way. But because they weren't confident in him, they gave Trocheck that big deal to kind of to replace Strome. And now Chytil who is playing well and is going to ask for a raise, and he deserves one. The Rangers don't really have the space to give that to him. And that is one of my predictions that I hope I am wrong about. Again, I do not want to be right about this prediction, but I feel like if you take a look at the roster and you take a look at the money situation and what they need to do in order to fix it moving forward, they don't have a lot of wing. They need a right winger, and they have 8,000 centers. And because Filipino is going to be an RFA at the end of the season, unfortunately, my prediction is that he will be gone.
Remember all of the people who were paid to write about hockey saying Filipino should be a full-time winger? Those were good times. Those were people regurgitating what other people told them and passing it off as their own opinion. Filipino's always been good. He just couldn't stay healthy. There is a difference. There is a legitimate difference. Chytil has been a good player at the NHL level for 3 years now. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy, and it's been the biggest issue in his career. And to this point, he's been outstanding this year.
I would love for him to maintain his status as a Ranger. I would love nothing more. Like I said, I don't want to be right about that prediction. Just the fact of the matter is, if you take a look at their upcoming salary situation and what they have going on for them and their dire need for a right winger, which they have yet to address, and all these situations just mixed together. Yeah, I mean, they could trade Kravtsov, sure, and I don't know what his trade value is going to be and who even wants him right now. But Filipino is going to demand a good price. And given how all this contract situation is going to shake out at the end of the season, again, I wish I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But just if I can have my crystal ball here and looking ahead as to what the Rangers could possibly do, that is one of the forks in the road that Christopher could walk down on.
Okay, let's talk. They got 3 games this upcoming week. They've got They've got Minnesota, they've got Montreal, and then they have, I want to say, I'm forgetting one team. Hang on, this is terrible radio. Hang on. I have the NHL app already open because I was writing this down. Dallas. They've got Minnesota, Dallas, and Montreal. This is a little bit tougher. Minnesota hasn't been that good this year. Their goaltending has been a real issue for them. That's been a sore spot. Dallas is just good. Rupe Hintz got hurt last night. I don't know what kind of situation he's in, if he's going to be back by Thursday. And then they have Montreal again over the weekend. I'm very curious to see what the Rangers do against Dallas in particular, because Dallas is actually good. And then the other two teams take what you want. I just really don't want a lot of Ryan Reeves discourse and a lot of Zuccarello discourse, because I know I'm asking for peace in the Middle East by saying that, but
right.
There's nothing to be said. They needed to trade Ryan Reeves because they needed the cap space to be able to make a deadline addition. That's
He's also bad at hockey. Like that. That's
you don't even need to go to that point.
He's also just bad at what he does. Listen, he's a hashtag locker room guy, hashtag grit, whatever you want to add to that, but he's bad at hockey. And he also makes a lot. Like, he made nearly $2 million to be bad at hockey. Like, it was time. It was they didn't need to give him that extension anyway. They gave it to him, which then made them not go up to Tyler Mott, and now they're going to trade for him anyway. So listen, at least the Minnesota Wild didn't make the Rangers save any of his cap. They took on all of it, and even gave the Rangers a fifth-round pick for it. So you know what? Could be worse.
I'm very curious to see. The Wild are a very fun team to watch. Their defense is not as tight as it's been in years past. They're a little bit looser. Their goaltending is not as good. I'm very scared to see what Kirill Kaprizov does to Ben Harper if they're on the ice at the same time. That could be very ugly. That could be like an and one mixtape moment. Like, somebody's going to yell, expose him. That's kind of what I expect to happen. I mean, God bless Ben Harper, man. But him and Jack Hughes are skating at different levels.
Yeah, that was tough to watch. And you already know that Rangers Facebook is going to be just filled with Matt Zuccarello memes for days, for literal days. It's going to be filled today. It's going to be filled tomorrow. It's going to be filled, and then it's going to turn over to Reeves for the next few days. Oh, it's going to be a nightmare. Don't go. Whatever you do, listen. I only have Facebook to watch videos. Basically, like I'm not on there very often. But whatever you do, skip
don't
the
go Rangers
Facebook. Don't go Rangers Facebook. It's all it's going to be is them yelling into the void about trading for Matt Zuccarello and why they never should have traded Ryan Reeves away. That's going to be their entire discourse. Just stay away. It's not worth.
You forgot make Mark Messier the coach.
Right.
Those are the three things. Those are the three Rangers Facebook talking points.
Right.
Okay. Last thing we'll do for the week before we get out of here, we'll do 3 stars of the week, and we'll talk about what we got. Yeah. So we'll talk 3 stars of the week, and then we'll look ahead to the week ahead. So I have Jack Hughes first star. That was the best player on the ice on Saturday on either team. That dude is going to be, if he's not already, a top 10 player in the league by the end of the season. So next summer, when we do the NHL 20, Jack Hughes will definitely be in my 20. Igor stole the game against Carolina. Outstanding as usual. Kreider starting to find the goal scoring stroke. He's on pace for 40 now. He's finding it. I think he's got 3 in his last 4 or something like that. Maybe 4 in his last 4, something like that. He's been really good. The goal against Montreal, very satisfying, very reminiscent of the goal he scored against Carey Price in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2014. Same exact kind of play, streaking down the wing, beat him.
Wasn't tripped this time though. Alexei Emelin was not there to trip him into the goalie, so he's improved.
Yeah, he had. Kreider's been fine. There are a lot of other things to complain about. The Kreider's been fine this year. I'm very glad that contract is not aging as badly as I feared in the past. The floor is yours, sir.
For Chris Kreider, I have him up there as well, and we kind of have similar talking points. Chris Kreider just had a really good week. He looked strong against Montreal. He looked strong against New Jersey. He's more present, I feel like, than he has earlier on the season. That's a positive sign. Whereas Chris Kreider, maybe earlier on, I know he has 19 goals or something right now, but there were stretches earlier on where he was just he was there, but was he really playing the game of hockey? I don't really know. At least now his past week has been really strong, and that is one thing that I'm really happy to see, and hopefully he continues that moving forward. K'Andre Miller had a really solid week on both ends of the ice. I think he had a couple of assists. As K'Andre Miller likes to do, he's a really good 2-way player, And I think he had a really good game against Carolina. Had a solid game against the Devils as well. I think he just had a really good week. And Filipino also was on the scoreboard multiple times this week, and he again is a noticeable player on the ice whenever he gets the opportunity to skate, because sometimes Gallant doesn't give it to him, and that makes me sad. But he gets my third star.
Okay. We said last week they need 5 out of 6. I think realistically, you're probably looking 4 or 5 out of 6 out of these 3 games. Minnesota is a beatable team, and Montreal over the weekend, they should beat. The Dallas game, that's a bit of a toss-up. Dallas is a pretty good team. They can get, if Dallas gets going downhill on you, if that first line, if Hintz is fine, and it's him, Pavelski, and Jason Robertson, God help whoever's on the ice for the Rangers, because they're going to be pinned in their own zone a lot. That is one of, if not the best first lines in all of hockey.
The Rangers do need at least 4. I would like to see 5. I mean, realistically, you are going to be Montreal, and if not, that's a whole other conversation for when that happens. But Dallas is a team that has looked really good, but they also have had some clankers. As you mentioned, Hintz got injured. I watched the game that they played against, I think it was Montreal or a team that they should have beaten pretty handily, and they got shut out. So they're a team that can bring it to you if you let them, but they have some holes in their game as well that can be exploited. And Minnesota, this could either be a 1-0 game where both goalies just stop 75 shots, or this game is going to be 9-8, and there's just no in between.
Okay. Last thing before we get out of here, gotta remind everybody, please, please, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're on all the major podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify. Words are hard sometimes, people. English is hard, especially when you talk for 45 minutes straight. The major podcasting platforms. We got video on YouTube. We're live every Monday, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. On socials, you can see Twitter and Instagram are both at Liberty Blue Pod. Andrew's handle on Twitter is Chelney Andrews, CHELNEY. Mine is Nick Sararis, Nick, CARARIS. Be sure to follow those. Lots of content drops, lots and lots of thoughts and ideas. National title game is in like an hour and a half. I'm going to be watching that, not worrying about hockey on a Monday night.
Really? Because I couldn't tell.
Yes, correct. Business to take care of.
If you're not watching but you're listening, my guy Nick is decked out in Georgia apparel. He's got the hat on. He's got the jersey on. He is ready to go for this game.
We them dogs, Andrew. I'm not going to bark though. I'll see you guys next week.
All right. Well, maybe if you know what, if you give the show that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, maybe Nick will bark next week. We'll talk to you then though. Later.
See you.